We commend the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for providing a level playing field, allowing INEC to operate independently and resisting the improper use of the federal power to influence the electoral outcome.
Economy, United Nigeria.
Strong economy, United Nigeria.
APP.
Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Distinguished members of the press, fellow Nigerians, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to this press conference on behalf of the national leadership of Action People's Party, APP, to offer our considered assessment of the recently conducted Osun State governorship election. Let me begin by stating clearly that our party, the Action People's Party, APP, participated in the election as a duly registered political party. We therefore approach this election not merely from the narrow perspective of partisan victory or defeat, but from the broader and more important perspective of what the election represents for Nigerian democracy. While no election is perfect, and there will always be areas requiring improvement, the overall conduct of the Osun State governorship election provides encouraging evidence that Nigerian electoral process can continue to evolve towards greater credibility, transparency, and acceptance. For this, we believe that the institution and individuals who contributed to this outcome deserves recognition. The election is victory for democracy. First, we wish to place on record our profound commendation of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and particularly the chairman of the commission. Mr. Chairman, you have demonstrated through the Osun State governorship election that credibility of an electoral institution ultimately depends on the courage, independence, and integrity with which its leadership performs its constitutional responsibilities. The most important achievement of any election is not necessarily who wins or who loses. It is whether the people believe that they had a genuine opportunity to determine their leadership through the ballot. The Osun election has strengthened that confidence. We commend INEC for creating an enabling environment in which voters could exercise their constitutional right to vote and have their votes counted. We commend the Commission for resisting the pressure that could undermine the integrity of the process and for allowing democratic will of the people to prevail. For us, in the Action People's Party, APP, this is precisely what an electoral commission should represent: an impartial referee that does not determine the winner, but creates the condition under which the people determines the winner. Mr. Chairman, by the standard demonstrated in Osun by your commission, you have emerged as a new democratic hero. We urge you not to rest on this achievement. Rather, let the Osun experience become the beginning of an even more credible electoral culture across Nigeria. The lessons of Osun must be institutionalized. We equally commend His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for the role he played by allowing a level playing field for political parties during this election. Democracy requires more than periodic conduct of elections. It requires those in power to demonstrate that confidence and maturity and allow citizens to freely choose their leaders, including when the outcome may not necessarily favor the governing party. The president deserves commendation for resisting the temptation of deploying federal powers in a manner that could improperly influence the outcome of the election. He allowed the electoral process to take its course. He allowed INEC to operate with the necessary independence. He allowed political parties to compete. And most importantly, he demonstrated that federal government can permit a genuinely competitive electoral process without seeking to predetermine the outcome. This is important for Nigerian democratic development. It is also important because the eyes of Nigerians are already looking towards 2027. The Osun experience provides an opportunity for the president and the federal government to establish a clear democratic precedent that electoral power belongs ultimately to Nigerian people, and that government must respect the sanctity of their votes. We therefore encourage the president to sustain this approach. If the federal government can provide this kind of environment in Osun, then there is no reason why 2027 general election cannot be conducted to even a higher democratic standard. The Action People's Party, APP, also commends the security agencies and their respective leadership for the role they played in maintaining security during the election. We specifically recognize the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Army, the Department of State Services, alongside other security agencies that contributed to the security architecture of the election. Elections cannot be credible where voters are afraid to come out. Electoral officers are threatened. Materials cannot move safely, or political actors are allowed to intimidate their opponents. Security is therefore not an incidental component of an election. It is fundamental to the credibility of the entire democratic process. We commend the security agencies for protecting electoral materials, election officials, citizens, and for contributing to an environment in which the people of Osun could exercise their franchise. We urge them to maintain the same professionalism and neutrality in the future elections. But beyond the institutions, we must recognize the real owners of democracy. That is the people. We congratulate the people of Osun State for their political maturity and for participating in the electoral process. Elections are ultimately about the citizens. Political parties nominate candidates. Politicians campaign. INEC conduct elections. Security agencies provide protection. But it is the people who confer democratic legitimacy through their votes. The people of Osun have once again demonstrated that political disagreement need not to be violence, and that electoral competition does not have to destroy the societal fabric of a society. We commend voters who came out to exercise their franchise and political actors who subjected themselves to the judgment of the electorate. We also congratulate Governor Adeleke, who has emerged victorious, and urge him to govern in the interest of all the people of Osun, irrespective of how they voted. In a democracy, an election ends the context, but begins responsibility to govern. We must, however, be responsible in our assignment. The Action People's Party does not believe that any election should be described as perfect. There will always be logistical, administrative, technological, and operational challenges that must be identified and addressed. The fact that we are commending the overall process does not mean that we should stop asking questions or demanding improvements. Indeed, credible democracy requires continuous improvement. We therefore encourage INEC to undertake a comprehensive post-election review of the Osun exercise, engage political parties and other stakeholders, identify areas of weakness, and ensures that lessons learned are incorporated into subsequent elections. The Commission must continue to improve the management of electoral materials, voters' accreditation, results management, collation procedure, communication with political parties, and deployment of technology. Most importantly, electoral regulations must be applied consistently and impartially to every political party and every candidate. The credibility of an election is not merely about what happens on the election day. It is about the entire electoral cycle. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the most important message from Osun is what it means for 2027 general election. Nigeria is approaching another critical democratic milestone. The 2027 general election will be watched not only by Nigerians, but by the international community. The standard we set now will determine the confidence Nigerians will have in our democracy for years to come. The Osun election provides an important template. If political parties compete, if INEC can operate independently, if federal government can provide a level playing field, if security agencies can remain professional, if voters can cast their votes without intimidation, and if the outcome can reflect the will of the electorate, then Nigeria has demonstrated that credible elections are possible. There is therefore no justification for lowering the standard in 2027. Osun must not be an exception. Osun must be the benchmark. We call on the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to build upon this experience. We call on the federal government to sustain this principle of non-interference. We call on security agencies to maintain neutrality and professionalism. We call on political parties to respect the rule of democratic competition. And we call on all Nigerians to defend their votes and reject violence, intimidation, and electoral manipulation. The Action People's Party, APP, will support every legitimate institutional effort aimed at making the 2027 election more credible, transparent, and inclusive. As political parties, we also have responsibilities. We cannot demand credible elections while tolerating undemocratic conduct within our own political organizations. The sanctity of the ballot must begin with internal democracy of political parties. Candidates must emerge through transparent processes. Party members must have confidence in the system through which leaders and candidates are chosen. Political disagreements must be resolved through democratic mechanism rather than violence. The Action People's Party, APP, remains committed to building a political platform in which democratic participation, accountability, constitutionalism, and the rule of law are not merely slogans, but operating principles. We will continue to participate constructively in the Nigerian democratic process while remaining committed to our principles. At this moment, we call on Nigerians not just to be cynical about democracy. There are genuine reasons for concern about our political system, but there are also reasons for hope. Every time an election is conducted, more credible than the other one before it, our democracy becomes stronger. Every time a political leader accepts the will of the people, our democracy becomes stronger. Every time an electoral umpire refuses to compromise the integrity of the ballot, democracy becomes stronger. Every time security agencies protect voters rather than intimidate them, democracy becomes stronger. Every time citizens insist that their votes must count, Nigeria becomes stronger. That is why the Osun election matters a lot. It is bigger than one state. It is bigger than one political party. It is bigger than one candidate. It is about whether Nigerians can continue to believe that their votes can determine who governs them. In conclusion, let me therefore reiterate the position of the Action People's Party, APP. We commend the Independent National Electoral Commission and the chairman, Professor Josh Amuputan, for the conduct of Osun State governorship election and for creating an environment in which the people could freely exercise their democratic rights. We commend the President, Bola Ahmed TINUBU, for providing a level playing field, allowing INEC to operate independently and resisting the improper use of the federal power to influence the electoral outcome. We commend the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Army, the Department of State Services, and other security agencies for their contribution to a secured electoral environment. We commend the people of Osun State for their participation and commitment to democratic process. We congratulate the candidate who has emerged victorious, His Excellency Adeleke, for the victory at the polls and urge him to serve all the people of Osun State. We urge INEC, the federal government, the security agencies, political parties, and all stakeholders to take the lesson of Osun forward. Osun has shown us what is possible. Now, Nigeria must build on it. The 2027 election must be conducted with an even higher standard of transparency, neutrality, professionalism, and respect for the will of the people. Mr. Chairman of INEC, you have demonstrated that electoral umpire can earn the confidence of Nigerians. We encourage you to continue on this path and to ensure that the credibility witnessed in Osun State becomes a permanent feature of Nigerians' electoral process. The Action People's Party, APP, will continue to defend the sanctity of the ballot and work with every institution and citizens committed to building a Nigeria in which political power is obtained through the consent of the people and exercised in their interest. This is not about APC. This is not about APP. This is not about PDP, Accord, ADC, or any other political party. This is about Nigeria. A victory for the people, a victory for democracy, a victory for Nigeria, and for a better society. Thank you, and God bless you. you can't do that. So I didn't see it. Everything here. This my cap on weapon is covering my face, right?
No, this is the party man.
Huh? You can't touch this beard. It's okay like that.
No, phone on silence for features.